You are listening to Lovely Talks Heavy.
Hello everybody and welcome to Lovely Talks Heavy. I am your host Lovely and I discuss everything I enjoy with regard to heavy music. First off, number one, please excuse my voice this episode. I have a sore throat and yet somehow I think it's a good idea to still record an episode while having a sore throat. It's fantastic. I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna power through it. And, you know, we're all just still gonna have a good time, okay? I'm doing okay. I mean, it's surprising that I have gone as far as I have into 2018 without suffering any, like, allergies or illness of this, category. I don't know, I'm powering through it. I'm drinking tea and hopefully I can come out stronger and a better person from this. I don't know. Let's go to the actual episode content. So, let's talk about song covers. When we hear that term, song cover, cover version, of course we think about one artist performing or recording an already existing song by another artist. This has emerged in many ways, the transformation of popular songs into heavy metal versions by Eric Calderone, Anthony Vincent, and the like, My Chemical Romance compacting Desolation Row by Bob Dylan into a 2.5-minute fast-paced punk song, and the existence of tribute bands providing their flavor to an existing musician's work while ultimately trying to remain true to it. If we look back into the early 20th century, though, the idea of multiple artists singing or playing the same song wouldn't be considered covering it, but rather just creating multiple experiences of the same song. Which, in modern terms, seems like and totally is the exact same thing, but there is a difference in focus between then and now. The central piece of the music industry at the time was the song itself, and the way to make money off of it was to sell sheet music so that people could create their own musical experience at home. If multiple different people perform the same song, it would be good for the songwriter of that song. Bing Crosby recorded his version of My Buddy a year after Frank Sinatra did, but that wouldn't have been a cover. Those were just two of the different iterations of the same song. The idea and possibility of song covers wouldn't arrive until later into the mid-20th century, with the emergence of artists like the Beatles popularizing the concept of performing and writing one's own music, and beginning the shift of focus from the song to the performer in the music industry. This episode will be a playlist of hard rock and heavy metal song covers that I really enjoy. We'll compare and contrast each version of the songs that I discuss, what the cover version did differently with the song, and I will get into which version that I prefer. Of course, I will have a playlist of these songs and more on Spotify linked in this episode's description, so be sure to check that out. So let's have some fun and dive into these cover songs. So, since I mentioned Desolation Row, why not talk about it? My Chemical Romance did their take on Bob Dylan's classic song for the soundtrack to The Watchmen. The original song weaves several stories containing historical, fictional, and biblical characters all taking place within the setting of Desolation Row, also an acoustic guitar, and eventually harmonica, and the sounds of Bob Dylan's distinctive voice, all over the course of 11 minutes. The one song that I think would dare to compare lyrically is Lemon Demon's internet-ticular classic, Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny. MCR spun this drastically by condensing the song under 3 minutes, in the process removing a good chunk of the lyrics, speeding up the song and the way it's sung, plugging in the instrumentation, turning up the volume on everything, and adding a guitar solo inspired by the original song's melody. Of course, it's a risky move by any band to cover such a classic. You could end up bastardizing the song completely by virtue of daring putting your hands on it, Taylor fucking Swift! Or you could end up putting a fun new spin on it, and I think MCR did the latter with this song. Though I will say that I am biased in this regard because the song came out when I was in high school, when I was already an MCR fan, and I had never even heard a Bob Dylan song at the time, and when I found out that this was actually a cover, I looked it up, saw that the original was that long, and said, Yeah, pass. Of course, my stance has changed regarding 3.5 minutes being the most appropriate song length, but I'm not a Bob Dylan fan now, and I still do not have the patience for the original version of Desolation Row, despite having made myself sit through it just to see how it sounded for the first time. Whiskey in the Jar started out as a traditional Irish song. It first got popularized with the Dubliners' recording of it in the 1960s. Thin Lizzy then covered that, and then Metallica covered Thin Lizzy's version. So there's an interesting game of telephone happening here. The Dubliners' recording of Whiskey in the Jar is 3 minutes and has a lot of verses throughout, with multiple vocalists and minimal instrumentation. Thin Lizzy stretched out the time span, left a bit more time between verses, and yet still cut out some verses. And you also have a more traditional hard rock instrumentation setup. It's a slightly different approach from what happened with My Chemical Romance and Bob Dylan, where in that one it was shorter and therefore the cutting out of lyrics was necessary. But in this it's longer, and yet they still made the choice to cut out lyrics. Metallica then keeps more faithful to the Thin Lizzy version, although adding one more guitar into the mix with a heavier sound because it's Metallica. And of course, James Hetfield's distinctive vocals not being able to resist adding a few soft yells throughout. Each iteration of this particular branch of versions of Whiskey in the Jar adds a new layer to it, akin to how fairy tales have transformed and continue to transform from being spoken stories to people like Perrault and the Brothers Grimm recording them on paper to them now being put into comic books and gritty TV shows. Metallica's is my favorite because I am drawn to the heaviness that they add, but looking at this metamorphosis is quite fascinating. People do not cover Iron Maiden songs because they believe that they can somehow make it better. They do not believe that they can masterfully reinvent Iron Maiden. People cover Iron Maiden songs because people love Iron Maiden and they just want to play an Iron Maiden song. There are a few appearances of Iron Maiden originals on this playlist, and the one I'm going to specifically discuss, though, is Arch Enemy's version of Ace's High. Like the other covers of Iron Maiden songs that appear on this playlist, there is a distinctive deviation away from the sound of the original version. This is most likely because vocally, all of the vocalists in these bands have a distinctive particular vocal style, and trying to put that through the filter of trying to sound like Bruce Dickinson is a losing battle. I love Danny Filth's vocal style, but I don't want to see him try to sound like Bruce Dickinson. So why not transform it into something completely new? Instrumentally, while Arch Enemy keep mostly faithful to the original version of Ace's High, there are some noticeable tweaks. The intro of the song is slowed down just a bit. Just a bit. Then after the it speeds up the tempo of the song just a bit. The vocals, of course, are the most noticeable change, with Johan Leva, the then frontman for Arch Enemy, taking the original direction of Bruce Dickinson's power metal vocals, and then turning it southward. That's just saying, using the death metal growl in way too many words. I think that's an interesting thing to observe, though. Something that is typically very cleanly sung with high notes that I could never hope to reach is taken and garbled up into hazy Cookie Monster vocalizations that vaguely sound like what the original words say. And that's no insult to Johan Leva. I say that as somebody who appreciates and loves the death metal growl. It's just a very interesting subversion. The original wins my heart on this one, however, Arch Enemy bring us an enjoyable alternate timeline version of Ace's High. I might get roasted for this next one. I don't think I deserve to be roasted for this one, but hey, if you want to put me on blast for this, make it your favorite problematic post about me. My Twitter handle is lovelymetalhead. See how creative you can get in your hate comments and callouts without using dehumanizing slurs. I might just give you a shout out on the podcast if you manage to make me laugh. If you have no clue what I'm talking about,
I don't think that Killswitch Engage's cover of Holy Diver by Dio is all that bad, and in fact, I really enjoy it.
Perhaps I'm really on edge about this one in particular because when I said on Gaia Online and the music forums when I was in high school that I really liked this, I got dogpiled by people that thought they had more correct opinions than I did. Well, fuck you, I run a podcast, which means my city now, my opinions are the only correct ones, and Commandment 17K states that Holy Diver, as covered by Killswitch Engage, is actually good. You guys are just mean. I'm not even what one would consider a Killswitch Engage fan. I just get so heated about this. Ask me my opinions on Ant-Man next, how about? Let's talk about the actual song, though. The original, the classic, that Dio that we all know and love is distinctive to me for reasons. One, the very prominent bass line through the song. Like, yes, there are guitars, there's a guitar solo, but it feels like to me that the guitars are taking a bit of a backseat on this one. The bass line is mainly informing us of how we should nod our head in time to the song. And of course, number 2, Ronnie James Dio's vocal style and vocalizations that he adds through the song before it fades out. Killswitch Engage take this, and they make him more metalcore. Whereas the original feels more bare bones, not a lot extra is needed, let each minimal facet of this original experience speak for itself, Killswitch really fill in the song with guitars and add unclean vocals to the experience. You know the part that's like, doo-doo, between the velvet lies, doo-doo, there's a truth as hard as steel, where RJD sings it way soulfully like I just tried to. Killswitch really punch up the metalcore on that with the instead of the doo-doo. I'm not gonna attempt to do the unclean vocals because of the aforementioned sore throat, but imagine I just did, okay? You know, one thing that is major, aside from literally everything about the Killswitch Engage cover of the song, is that the guitar solo is changed up and a bit shortened. Because I heard this cover so much in high school, the version of this guitar solo is something that remains so memorable to me to this day. I think this is a case like with the Iron Maiden cover. Killswitch aren't trying to somehow reinvent the wheel, they were just having a good time playing a Dio song. And I think it's important to note that if it weren't for this cover, I would not have known about Dio as soon as I did in my youth. I would say that when a newer band puts their new spin on a classic like Dio, it is very instrumental in introducing younger people to the classics and letting them know where hard rock and heavy metal forge their paths. My just one personal requirement is don't be a fucking shitty person, Taylor Swift. Okay, sidebar, I know this isn't metal, but it is just so goddamn infuriating what she did and tried with September. Like, go away! I will not miss you! Nobody will! That's a lie, some people will, but you know what, they'll get over it. We're getting off track again. And now, time for a true controversial opinion. I really like the Killswitch Engage version better. If anything, at this point, for nostalgia reasons, I would hear the song so much on the radio with headphones plugged in because everybody in the house besides me hated good music, in a time that the radio was the only access I had to music. It was part of my cultivation of my taste in hard rock and heavy metal. It probably helped Killswitch Engage that I was in high school, and so something like their version of Holy Diver was more palatable for somebody my age, but regardless, it still holds this place in my heart. You know, if I had one of those. I've talked about this song before in a track-by-track review. Can you guess which one? It's Twilight of the Thunder God by Amon Amarth, but as covered by Sabaton. Sabaton stay pretty loyal to the original composition, the only differences being Joachim Broden's clean vocals through the song, and the bridge having these power metal synths added into it. However, they keep true to Johan Hegg's original death metal vocals in the bridge by taking on Peter Totgren to growl out the bridge and do the guitar solo. I love this power metal take on this death metal song. Not much had to be changed, and look what happened. I mean, it probably helps that the song was already pretty melodic, but still. As far as my personal preference of which version, I'd have to say that it is a 4-way tie on this one. And I say 4-way because you have the original Amon Amarth version, you have Sabaton's cover of it on a limited edition version of the album Carolus Rex, you have Sabaton's live version of their cover on their album Heroes Deluxe Edition, then you have this beautifully blended mashup of Amon Amarth and Sabaton's versions lingering somewhere on YouTube, just, it's a 4-way tie. Cause you lose, Whatever I just said was just probably total Finnish gibberish. Anyways, to round out this playlist discussion, I submit to you Oops, I Did It Again, as covered by Children of Bodom, as made famous by Britney Spears. This, unfortunately, is one addition to the playlist that won't appear on the Spotify playlist because for some damn reason, Children of Bodom Skeletons in the Closet isn't on Spotify. This is a hate crime. Where do I report it? Like, it's no big deal for me because I have the song on iTunes. So, why this song in particular? Well, that's a good question. That's because as a small wee child, a very small wee child, I wanted to be Britney Spears when I grew up. I mean, of course, that could never happen for a litany of reasons, but hey, gotta start dreaming somewhere, somehow. I mean, in first grade, we had to draw who our heroes were, and I drew Britney Spears as seen in the Oops, I Did It Again video. That red one-piece jumpsuit just means so much to me. And I still love Britney to this day. And if she's taking applications for children to adopt, I'm available. So we have one blonde vocalist covering another blonde vocalist. Whether or not Britney actually sings her songs is not up for debate. I know, I just don't care. Shut the fuck up. So, Children of Bodom offer a bass-boosted version of the original Oops, I Did It Again. It's a bit more chaotic, a lot more heavy, and a bit grosser because of the spit we hear in the beginning. Like, the song goes, I'm not that innocent, and that spit just takes it to a certain extreme. Of course, I also have that dialogue in the middle of the song, where in the original Britney's having a moment with her man, like, aw, you shouldn't have. Children of Bodom twist this in what I consider a subtle way. It's not subtle. The dialogue is in Finnish, their native language, and Alexi and Janne are talking about a 6-pack of beer. It's quite funny in my opinion. I love it. You also have the addition of a guitar solo, again inspired by the original song's melody. It is fantastic. Ultimately, it stays pretty true to the original while also being tongue-in-cheek to the approach of the song. Britney's original version reigns superior for me, however, you cannot not have fun with Children of Bodom's version. So that will do it for this episode of Lovely Talks Heavy. If you enjoyed it, why not share the show with a friend or two? It would mean the world to me. How do you feel about the covers that I discussed today? And what about the covers that I put in the Spotify playlist? Link in the episode description. Hit me up on social media, on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, YouTube, and Mixcloud. I am Lovely Metalhead. Engage me on those platforms. Follow me, put me on blast because I like Killswitch Engage's cover of Holy Diver. And thank you for bearing through this sore throat situation with me. Hopefully I get better soon. And until next week, next Saturday, the next episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, you stay brutal, my friend. Bye.